This meeting is now being recorded.
Susan Tenby, who is our social media consultant, and she will introduce herself and Willie Clow and get us started.
Hi. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Can everyone hear me? Okay,
yes.
Great. I'm going to put my webcam. Can you see me now? Ooh, someone's really hot on the mic. Next to your number, there should be a little arrow, and you guys can mute yourselves. I just shared my video camera. It doesn't look like I don't see my face, but it said it was sharing it. Let me try again. Okay. Can you see me? Nope. And if everyone else could mute themselves because I'm hearing an echo through somebody's computer, you could mute the sound on your computer. That would be helpful too. Okay. I am not seeing my own. Okay, I'm hearing a major echo on somebody's machine. If you guys could mute your microphones, or actually, I'm not seeing my own face. Are you guys seeing my face?
Susan, I'm not seeing that.
Okay. I'm going to just go ahead and turn off my webcam then because it's not, it doesn't seem to be working. And Lindsay's face is frozen right now for me. So I'm going to right now turn off my webcam for now and continue. So I'm definitely hearing an echo from somebody. So if you guys have your ability to mute your microphone, that would be helpful. Okay, I'm going to get started. So I'm Susan Tenby. I have been working with
670.
Hi. Could those of you who have your microphones on, could you mute your microphones? If you are using headsets, I think that we just solved the problem. It feels like somebody just muted themselves, which is great. So I'm Susan Tenby. I've been working with SCRA since April. I have been doing online community and social media in the nonprofit sector for about 15 years now. And I'm here today as a social media contractor working with Willie Clow. And I have been doing all sorts of online community and social media related jobs my entire career, pretty much. Starting from early listserv administration to all the way to social media. And I'm just here to talk to you guys about social media. Willie, do you want to say a few words about yourself before we move on?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So thrilled to be here working with Susan on getting you guys started with social media. To be honest, Susan was my person who opened the doors to me about social media, and I feel like it's just quite a great opportunity that I can do this with her for you all. I've been working in a few nonprofit organizations these past few years, and I currently volunteer with Susan at Caravan Studios.
Okay, so we're going to talk about really social media is, why you should be on social media, and we're going to look at the three main channels that I'm working with on, which are Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we're going to finish up with the timing and investment needed because often people kind of feel like their main point with social media is that they don't have time. So I want to kind of really brush on the bare minimum you can do in less than an hour just to get yourself up and online because honestly, social media is not going anywhere, as we know, so it's better to kind of use the tool for what it is, which is a great community building and networking tool. And for those of you already on Twitter, it would be wonderful if you would use the hashtag SCRASocial and @mention SCRA so that after this webinar, we can actually read and respond to your tweets. And our Twitter handles, I'm going to go back to the slide before, these are our Twitter handles. So if you want to mention or ask anything of us, these are our Twitter handles. So using the SCRASocial hashtag will get you guys together in a sub-conversation. So I'll kind of talk a little bit more about hashtags. But with that, we're going to start off with the skepticism piece. So a lot of people, think that they don't have any need for social media. But social media really does help locate you on the web. If you don't have a personal website, or if you do have a personal website, but you don't do much on it, social media really helps. It's very trackable and very findable via SEO. And, it helps you share content a lot easier. It helps you talk to large groups of people that you wouldn't have access to otherwise, and create meaningful relationships. It's not just about tweeting for tweeting's sake. It's about actually building a community. In an ordinary webinar, that I would have a third person live tweeting this. So those of you that do tweet, it'd be great if you pick that up and live tweet as whoever is doing this in the chat, kind of just your findings, what you guys are learning, just so we can all share it together. And don't be too stressed out about taking notes, because at the end of this presentation, I will have already loaded up the entire PowerPoint on my SlideShare, and hopefully once we get access to the older SCRA SlideShare on that as well. And so you guys can actually have access to the PowerPoint and feel free to use it. And we also are collecting all resources at the end. We have all the resources together for your use. So moving ahead. Okay, so social media is really a network of people, right? It's not just a publishing channel. It's not just a one-way publishing channel, but it's really a way that people are connected. What you're looking at right now is a snapshot of the SCRA network itself. So this is a snapshot of one particular moment, in that a photograph of a conference is one particular group of people at one particular moment. It doesn't necessarily represent the entire SCRA network, obviously, but it represents the people that were tweeting about SCRA at that moment. And what you can see here is that although I, Sue, was talking to several people like Carlos and Willie and some other APA grad students, not everybody was talking to each other. And so kind of the goal, you can see Lindsay's up in the corner at the top, but the goal is really to get people to talk to each other. So not to just kind of talk out, but to remember that it's a conversation, and you want to be really making the network dense so that everyone is talking to each other. And that's a difficult thing to achieve, but it's a sign of a super healthy social network. And, when we came on board with SCRA, we were trying to really build that. So hopefully with time, this network will look more dense, less white material, more green, more arrows, making the network more dense. And so, as I was mentioning, it's really about community and relationships. It's about ways to get into conversation with people that are far away and widespread. Social media and online community in general is a two-way conversation. You have to remember that there's nothing else that is somebody needs to if nothing else, you have to really remember that this isn't just a broadcast channel, but really more of a two-way conversation so that we can have a feedback loop, and that it keeps you current. It makes you an authority on a certain subject matter. So that's a great way to kind of keep you in the forefront if you're just kind of beginning your career. Social media is a great way to position yourself among experts and keep you as an authority. And I'm going to pass it to Willie, but it seems like, is everyone hearing me okay? And Bruce and Benjamin, if you guys could mute your mic.
Okay. Yep.
If everyone other than the speakers could mute their mics, that would be great. Awesome. Thank you. So Willie is going to talk about growth of your community.
Hi, everyone. So these next few slides, I gathered a couple of key statistics on user growth for these three social media platforms. And
all guests have been muted. All guests have been unmuted. business and education. Our MA in psychology is the second largest non-clinical master's degree program in the state of Illinois. And according to the 2013 U.S. News and World Report rankings, Channel U is among the top 20.
All guests have been unmuted. All guests have been unmuted.
Proud to have 59 alumni who have been honored with the Golden Apple Award.
All guests have been muted.
Hi, everyone. Okay, great. Looks like you can all hear me now. So what I have here are a few statistics on the user growth for the 3 channels that we chose to talk about today. And the reason why I'm showing you these is because we chose Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn based on current user activity and the purpose of the network. There's tons of social media platforms you can join, which leaves the biggest question of which one you should spend your time on. And as you can see here, Facebook, it is definitely the most active social media platform out of all of them. And even though there's online gossip about Facebook's relevancy, it's definitely here to stay. People spend inordinate amounts of time on it, and if you pay attention to Facebook's strategy, they actually intend to distribute their site through all the different apps, and that's just one way that they're trying to make sure that they stick around. Next slide, please. All right, so here is a graph showing Twitter's user growth. And unlike Facebook, Twitter is an open network. Even though that you can set your profile to private on Twitter, the difference is that Twitter's whole premise is based on an ability to follow and talk to anyone without having to be their friend as you have to do with Facebook. And to me, this is what makes Twitter one of the most exciting social media platforms. And at the same time, it's safe to say that there is a learning curve to Twitter. People often create an account, follow a few hundred news accounts, and then just let it sit there. So yes, it can be difficult for people to adopt, but Susan and I will walk you through it all in a second. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, here's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is unique from Facebook and Twitter in that it has a specific purpose. It's for people to get jobs, and it brings your physical network into the online space. It's 100% professional and for business, and it serves as a great place for personal branding. There's a lot more to LinkedIn than having a profile, but for today's webinar, we'll make sure you have one of the best LinkedIn profiles on the web. Next slide. Okay, and now I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay for an audience poll.
Is everyone able to see a question here asking about how you use social media? I'm seeing answers coming in. We wanted to get a sense of where folks are. All right, so it seems like we're having, this is one where it's a select all option. Just a few more answers to come in. And we see overall so far that to me like most people here are using social media as a content consumer. So you're reading what other people post. At least 2/3 of us are doing that. And then, you know, almost as many people are posting your own messages and content. It sounds like a few less folks, getting down to about half, are doing back and forth interactions, whereas only 29% are actually trying to find others online who share their interests. So what I'm seeing here are actually quite a diverse use of social media. Are people able to see these results? Please feel free to use the chat function. And again, I just want to say thanks for everybody as we get used to our software. All right, folks are seeing it. Thanks for participating. So it looks like the lowest one here, this will be useful for our consultants to know, is listening online to find others who share our interests, which is something that our social media consultants have been doing on behalf of SCRA so that we can find other folks who are focused on some of the same social justice research areas and other things that we focus on as community psychologists. So let me ask another question specific to one of the social media channels. And this one is about how often you use LinkedIn. And the answers are starting to come in. All right, so we've got about 25 answers of 32. And let me go ahead and see if we can share these answers. So what I'm seeing here is that most people are using LinkedIn about once a month, and the next most common choice is actually never. Is that right? And then we have people who are using it about twice a day or more, about 4% of people on the call. That's just one person, basically, that's doing once a day or more, or even twice a day or more. So very few members of the call are using it on a daily basis at present. What about another channel here that we're talking about, and this will help gear the presentation today? How often do you use Twitter? All right, so we have over half so far, a few less, indicating that they use it. Let's see here. My current count is about 44% say they never use Twitter. About 1 out of 5 participants, or really only 5 people on the call, use it once a month. And then we have even less who are using it kind of as on a daily basis or more. Let's move on to something that is probably relevant to all of us if we wanted to learn about building community today. What about using social media primarily for personal or professional use? This will be useful for us. Okay, so as the answers are coming in, hopefully you'll be able to see these results. So we have about 55%, well now it's jumped down a little, to 52% of people on the call who are primarily using it for personal use. And then we have about 1 out of 10 who are only using it for personal use, or so. Let's see here. But we do have 1/3 of the members on the call who are using it primarily for professional use. So that's also pretty useful to know in terms of gearing this talk today. And as our last question here, how about how often you're using Facebook? And this will just be things that not only can SCRA keep this in mind, but our presenters today can definitely keep this in mind in sharing their content with you and shaping the training. All right, so it looks like folks are primarily indicating here that we have about once a month as a kind of a spike. 7 people are using it once a month. And then we have about once a day, and we have twice a day or more for about half the people on the call. So it would seem to me, just trying to remember how people have done or answered so far, that Facebook might be one of the more common choices that people are using. So I think that ends the poll that we wanted to ask today, and I'm going to hand it back over to Susan, who will have this information as she continues to provide us more information.
Okay, so I'm no longer muted. I'm assuming now you can hear me, correct?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone, for being patient with our technical difficulties. This is a new tool that everyone's getting used to, and, you know, even with the most expensive webinar teams in a production studio, there's nothing like live audio and video to keep you on your toes. So there's always going to be some bumps in the road. That's what recording and editing is for. So moving forward, Twitter. So Twitter really, you know, whether you're using it, I saw in the public chat, there are people that are using it for, you know, that there's a necessary public versus private kind of persona, and that's something that we definitely can address in a future webinar. But, you know, on the whole, if you think about Twitter, you think about it as a way to share announcements about you, and the way you'd find out about those is via Google Alerts primarily, via listening dashboards like Hootsuite, which I'll cover later in the presentation, to join conversations with people like you, with people who share kind of similar topics to you, like Tweetchat, you know, on Tweetchats and using hashtags, to amplify or retweet other people's materials. So that's really about being generous. To find people like you, to build your network, find other people, for example, who are community psychologists, and finally to keep it real and kind of show who you are. So Guy Kawasaki says about social media, the primary role is to be enchanting. And just on note on Guy Kawasaki, if you guys are kind of new to all of this, your first 3 people you should follow, of course after Willie and I, are Guy Kawasaki, Beth Cantor, and Janet Fouts. So at J Fouts on Twitter, at KANTER on Twitter, and at Guy Kawasaki. Those are 3 experts, friends and colleagues of mine who I think do it right. So they're great ways, you know, to learn by example from them. I was talking about hashtags and doing conversations. If you're scratching your head thinking, what's a hashtag? You'll see this is a screenshot of the SCRA Twitter account. And I tweeted any feminist APA grad students going to hashtag APA 2014. So the reason I use the hashtag before the word feminist is because a hashtag allows you to create a vertical community within your tweet. So using a listening dashboard like Hootsuite, which is something that I will cover, we will see that you can, there are many, many people following certain topical hashtags. And you can just listen to them via Hootsuite, which I'll show you. And also conferences and events have hashtags like we said, SCRA Social and APA 2014. I was able to learn a lot about the APA 2014 conference, even though I was sitting here in my kitchen in San Francisco, just by listening to that hashtag. So that's what I'm talking about there. So just to kind of take a step back, we want to go, I'm just going to go over some essential Twitter terms just to kind of assume common knowledge on all of this. So RT is for retweet. You'll see that at the beginning of a tweet. The pound sign's a hashtag. MT is a modified tweet, so that's if you're quoting a tweet but you change it a little bit, or you might want to make a little addendum, then that's what an MT is. The @ sign is what goes before an account name. And what that really addresses is the fact that you don't want to just talk about someone without them knowing you're talking about them. So that allows you to kind of give them a tap on the shoulder. And if you use the @ sign in a tweet, the person will know you're talking about them. And if you use the @ sign at the beginning of a tweet, they will know you're talking about them, and so will everyone else who follows them, but not everyone else who looks at your Twitter page. So therefore, if you want to tweet at somebody and you're not sure if other people are following them, the safest thing is if you're using the @ symbol at the beginning of a tweet, put a period before it. So it's .@SCRA, blah, 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 blah. That way your tweet can not only be seen by them, but can be seen by all. So what I'm just trying to drill into your heads is that when you're tweeting, you're doing it in front of an audience. It's not a one-on-one conversation. It can be a one-on-one conversation, but it's in the public. And hopefully it's a many-to-many conversation, which is what the hashtag is about, broadening the scope of your tweet. HT means hat tip. It's kind of giving kudos to somebody, giving attribution. So if you were to be quoting me right now, you might want to do an HT for a hat tip. CC is like saying, hey, you. So if you're tweeting about, let's say that I'm tweeting about some conference and I think Lindsay might be interested in going, I would CC her. It's basically just kind of a tap on the shoulder. And a listening dashboard is what I was talking about. That's like Hootsuite, and there's some others like NetVibes and TweetDeck. And again, all this stuff will be in the notes. Important to choose your name carefully. As you can see, the Twitter handle I have is not ideal. It's something I chose when Twitter started. I didn't really even understand Twitter. I was an early tweeter, and it was the beginning of my email address, which is also something that I wasn't thinking about branding because it was a remnant from college, and I'm in my 40s. So just kind of use me as an example of what not to do, and make sure that you pick a Twitter handle that you like, that represents you, that is a consistent brand across all your social channels, and it shouldn't be too long or complicated. It shouldn't have kind of a tricky spelling with extra A's or silent E's. It should be something that people can easily identify as you, and also that will pop up in relation to your own name when people do search results for you. And with your Twitter page, you want to make sure that you put a picture of you, something that represents you, keywords that are findable. You can even put hashtags in your Twitter profile. So that way people who are searching on Google, let's say they search social media, whatever, social media nonprofit, with me, they will see me because I have those words in my Twitter profile page. And remember that with Facebook, once you hit 100 likes, your page is permanently named. You can change your Twitter name, but it's not ideal because people will already know you. And with Facebook, it's permanent, so really do choose your name carefully. And just recapping some golden rules that I was talking about, you always want to answer every tweet. So all your @ replies and your @ mentions, you should always respond to those because it's a conversation. You want to try to aim for tweeting twice a day, once a day at least. You want to follow Twitter lists in area of interest, and Willie will talk a little bit more about Twitter lists. When you search for somebody's name, you want to make sure that you're using, don't just guess a Twitter handle, because if somebody were to tweet @Susan Tenby, unfortunately, that's not my Twitter handle. So when you want to find somebody's Twitter handle, the best thing to do is just to go to Google or Bing, whatever search engine of your choice, and type in their name and the word Twitter, and then you will find their Twitter handle. The actual twitter.com search bar isn't that good. It doesn't work. It's not always accurate. The quickest way is just to search for their name and the word Twitter. And you want to retweet things of value to your audience. You want to make sure you read what you retweet. Don't just kind of retweet stuff without reading it, because you never know. The link might be broken. It might, God forbid, put up some kind of porn link or something. So you want to make sure that you are actually sharing stuff that you've read and not being lazy about that. You want to make sure that you not only answer questions, but also ask them of your users to create engagement. You want to really try to join a regular tweet chat. There are many I've found several in community psychology. I'll share those on the Twitter channel. You guys should all be, if nothing else, when you walk away from this webinar, all follow SCRA. And, I'm going to be sharing Also, if you want stuff tweeted on that account for now, shoot it to me and I will tweet it out, but hopefully you guys will eventually be the people working that account. And when you tweet, you want to connect people. So you want to connect names with other names, at names with other names, and the hashtags to kind of be seen as a connector, somebody who provides value. You also want to make sure that you tweet about 120 characters, and what that does is that it encourages sharing among your users. It encourages them to have the space, because you remember it's a tight economy of words. There's only 140 characters. So you want to make sure that you provide them the space to do a RT, for a retweet, at SCRA, to give you attribution and then some comments. You want to make sure you use trackable link shorteners like bit.ly so that your links don't take up the entire tweet and they're not really ugly, long, wrapping links, but that they're short. And bit.ly is wonderful because then you just go to bit.ly.com, or you go to bit.ly, that's the URL, and you can see what's had engagement and what's gotten click-through. So you can actually, it has some reporting features. And finally, just to share personal information, you don't want to be seen like a robot. You want to kind of, I try to use like some kind of humor in my tweets as well, just to kind of balance it out, because we're all people. You know, this isn't just, even professional accounts should have some elements of fun. So really just want to think about your branding. You want to think about the way you name your account. You want to make sure, this is just recapping, that your bio has information about you, and thinking about keywords because they're searchable in SEO. And remember that it's not all about you, and that you should be mentioning other people, you should be retweeting other people, and that, you know, you should be, when you're not available to tweet, you should be scheduling tweets. And like I was talking about, we're going to talk about Hootsuite. Hootsuite allows you to schedule updates, to schedule tweets ahead of time. You want to talk with people, not just at people, and not just about yourself. You want to make sure that you're having conversations. You want to vary your content so that it's text and video and images. And you want to, above all, make sure you're not auto-linking your Facebook account to your Twitter and vice versa, because there's different languages spoken in those different channels. People don't use a lot of hashtags or the letters RT in Facebook. And Facebook doesn't have the character limitation of Twitter, neither is LinkedIn. So don't be lazy about this kind of stuff. Make sure that you're speaking to the right people in the language in the right place, so that you are actually going to the channels. And, you know, a good reason for that is that you might get comments back. And if you're not actually in the channels, you're not going to see those valuable comments. So you want to make sure that you are generous, that you share other people's content, and that you are engaging. I'm going to pass over the mic to Lori.
Hi, everyone. All right, so hashtags. They started on Twitter, and due to their success, they're actually proliferating to other channels. You may have noticed that last year Facebook started using hashtags, so that they can start categorizing conversations in the same way as Twitter. So what hashtags essentially are, it's a way of labeling a tweet to make it easily searchable. Listening to and using hashtags is a way of joining a particular conversation. Some people think that adding as many hashtags as possible gives their tweet a greater chance of being found, but actually once you start going over 3, the tweet starts looking distracted, and it comes off like a tweet that doesn't need to be taken seriously. And the statistics do show this. Tweets with less than 3 hashtags receive the most engagement. And along those lines, don't make up useless hashtags. Doing so kind of defies the point of hashtags. Sometimes you see people doing it because it can be cute, and it is acceptable in a casual tone to use hashtags to convey humor or sarcasm. For example, I noticed that Susan tweeted a couple of days ago to United that they're just completely screwing up their flights, and she did hashtag lame. So that works out really well. And what you do want to do is find appropriate hashtags and be as specific as you can when you're using them. A really great tool that I use to find hashtags is hashtagify.me. It will show you adjacent hashtags on your topic of interest. And what you want to do also is to set it in your account info. That way, when people are searching for these hashtags, your account will come up in the search bar. In addition to that, you can monitor hashtags through lists with a tool called Tweetchat, and Susan will describe that later on in this webinar. So what all of this is getting at is that you should be listening to hashtags. And there are tools like SocialBro and LittleBird that will actually email you a daily digest of a search query. So if you want to follow, for example, here, hashtag NC Twitter, it will just give you all of the recent updates on that. And also be sure that you actually engage in these channels on these hashtags. And here we have this tweet from Janet South. She's a friend of Susan's, really understands social media, and her message here is that when you create a hashtag, for example, for an event or a webinar like this one, be sure to research it first. There's a chance that someone could be using it, and you want to make sure it doesn't collide with the messaging. Next slide.
Should I be at all advance? Okay, someone else is it.
Okay. All right. Here we are on retweeting. So there's 3 ways that we're going to describe to you how to retweet. This one here shows an abbreviated tweet where you attribute the person who originated the tweet at the very end using /dia. And you do this because you want them to notice you. For example, if Oprah tweeted something and you just did a drive-by retweet by hitting the retweet button, there's less of a chance that she'll know that you're giving her attention rather than doing it this way where it'll be notified that she was in a tweet by you. Next slide.
And I just want to jump in on that while you're moving to the next slide. An example of that is I was tweeting for Caravan Studios, which is my day job where I'm the Director of Partnerships and Community, and I was tweeting about the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and instead of just retweeting something she tweeted that 20 other people did, I actually quoted the tweet, changed it a little, brought my own perspective on it, and then I did /via at her username, and because of that, she immediately followed me. So kind of the idea behind what Lily's saying is if you move the attribution to the end of the tweet, they will notice you and they will follow you. So to favorite people and do that kind of attribution really helps them know you. Go ahead, Lily.
So here is another way to abbreviate, and it's done with an MT, a modified tweet, to shorten the tweet a bit and to add a comment at the end. And the reason why we like to do it this way as opposed to commenting at the beginning of the tweet is that we want to get the reader to read what's most important to them, which is that SCRA launched a new website. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's an example of a drive-by retweet, which is what I mentioned earlier. So this is just to show you what it looks like when SCRA hit the retweet button for this particular tweet. So it shows up in your Twitter stream as visually as if it was from Dr. Lorna Hart, just the way it is here. And it's nice to do this once in a while, just to kind of break up your Twitter stream so it doesn't all look like it originates from you. Next slide. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it off to Susan, who will tell you more about sharing articles on Twitter.
Yeah, so on this slide basically just kind of shows you, and we're aware of the time, but we're actually luckily able to go over, so you guys can hang with us and we can get through these slides and you guys can learn as much as, and we'll have time for some Q&A, and we'll also make time after. So this is about a lot of articles, a lot of websites will have a share this button, and you'll notice if you click it to share this on Twitter, sometimes they will do it wrong, and they'll have it configured in an incorrect way. So what you see at the top is with no attribution. So it's like it talks about the article, it doesn't mention the author name, and it has a super long, ugly link that is not trackable, and the people who wrote it don't know that you're sharing it. All bad. So the bottom window that you see is one that's optimized to share articles. So it says the Internet of Things, blah, 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 and there's the trackable link, and it has the / via and the author's name. So the only reason I'm bringing this up is if you have your own websites to make sure that that sharing is optimized, but also if you happen upon a site that has not been optimized, now you know how to go in and you can edit the long folding link, and you can do a shorter link. You can go to bit.ly, shorten the link yourself, and if you are generous, provide attribution. And then you'll be seen as somebody who kind of knows what they're doing, and also someone who's generous in social media because you're amplifying their brand. In terms of if you're worried about having nothing to say, that's not ever going to be the case because there are always tools that will help you curate something. So, for example, Hootsuite will help you listen to different Hootsuite will help you to listen to different hashtags like we were talking about in different Twitter lists and accounts. But tools like Scoopit are actually curation tools. So you can go to scoop.it and you can put in keywords, let's say community psychology, and we actually have started a SCRA, a community psychology page for SCRA on Scoopit, so you can look at that. And you can just feed it in and it will suggest stuff to you. And it kind of works like Pandora where you like stuff, you say, yes, that works, no, that's not relevant. And it kind of learns by your preferences, and it will give you stuff to tweet. So you'll never not have anything to say. You'll always have something to say. And again, we talked about scheduling updates as buffers, another great one to schedule tweets ahead of time if you're going to be on vacation, just so that your kind of pump is always primed. And really, the reason why you want to do this is because you don't want your Twitter feed to just be a bunch of stuff about you. You want it to kind of also position you as somebody who's got subject matter expertise and somebody who is generous and shines a light on other people. So that's kind of why you would do that. Now I'm going to hand it back to Willie to talk about who you would follow. We're talking like right from the beginning, setting up your Twitter account. How do you know who to follow? Willie?
Next slide.
I can advance it for you. There it is.
Okay. Okay, can we go back one?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so who to follow? This is a really good question because there are a ton of fan accounts and a lot of accounts who are from people that you don't necessarily share common interests with. And if you're using this professionally, it's important to build a community of followers that are actually interested in what you have to say and will engage with you. So what we suggest is to be strategic about building your follower base. And you can do this by using hashtags and Twitter lists. The way to use hashtags to build your follower base is that as you're finding these hashtags that you're interested in talking with, follow those people who are tweeting in a way that you find that you will want to have them as part of your community. In addition to that, what you can do is use Twitter lists to help you find people. And we'll show you in a few slides a couple of examples of Twitter lists. It's basically a feature that Twitter offers to categorize accounts. It's a really great way to find people that others have deemed important. And when you create your own public list, it serves as another method of getting people to notice you because those accounts you add will get a notification. I've listed a few tools here to help you discover people. We follow list prominent people. Muckrack, specifically if you're looking for journalists, just tweet it and follow categorized people based on their profession. Next slide. So here's just some recommended steps of what to do to make sure that you use Twitter lists in a way to build your follower base. Next slide. Okay, organic growth. So these are a few techniques to drive organic growth of Twitter followers. There's lots of ways to do it, but these are the ones that we've identified as being the most effective. And I've been talking about several of these points throughout this whole webinar, And we just compiled this here as reference to know that the whole goal of this is to grow your Twitter account. Next slide. So now Susan will go into.
Yeah, I'm going to talk now a little bit about influencers. So, you know, what Willie was saying was totally important and correct about kind of the who to follow. And, you know, we've also created a lot of lists on the SCRA account, as I mentioned in the chat, to help you guys kind of figure out who to follow. And you can subscribe to Twitter lists. But really, you want to make sure also that you're engaging influencers, because getting a retweet from someone with 7 followers is not nearly as significant as getting a retweet from someone with hundreds of thousands of followers. And there are a lot of tools that will help you find your influencers, the influential followers who are following you, tools like Little Bird, Social Bro, Commune.it. There's a lot of free tools out there. Those are free tools. And again, all of this will be available in the resources and SlideShare. And you want to make sure that you're creating flattering lists and adding those influencers. So like creating a Twitter list called Social Media Gurus or Funding Innovation is a way that makes people think, hey, that person's included me on a list that sounds like a place I want to be, so I'm going to follow them. It kind of helps you engage your influencers with you, rather than just having a list called Community Psychology. It gives, creating a Twitter list title that is more flattering makes them want to be there with you. And you want to monitor these lists, and a great way to monitor Twitter lists is through Hootsuite. I keep on mentioning Hootsuite. It's a lot easier than going to twitter.com and going through all the clicks to the different lists. And once you find something you can reply to any of these influencers, you want to go ahead and do it. Kind of a technique I like to use is to, over a couple days, to retweet something they write, move the attribution to the end so they notice you and you're not in that drive-by retweet situation where you're in a sea of other retweeters. You want to favorite tweets by them, and you want to answer their questions and ask them questions. And after 3 or 4 times, they'll think, who is this SCRA account, or who is this Susan? And then they'll follow you. So it's kind of a nice little trick to get influencers to notice you. And here, this next slide is just really kind of for fun, but also just to show you how influential people can be. The most influential person on Twitter is, for good or for bad, Katy Perry, 2 slots above our president. And she has 54 million followers. So a retweet from her is going to get a lot more reach than a retweet from someone with a couple hundred. And on the right, the box that you're seeing is actually the influencers of the SCRA account. And you'll see all these people follow SCRA. And Nonprofit Orgs is actually run by this one woman in Minnesota, and she's got 700,000 Twitter followers. So if you can engage her and get her to retweet something, that's great. That'll amplify your brand. So you just kind of want to look, and that was drawn from a tool called Social Bro. So you just want to make sure that you're kind of engaged, you're finding your influencers, and then you're engaging them. And I was talking about Twitter lists that we put together. So what you're seeing here is this is the example of the list that SCRA is listed under. So there are ways to talk about Twitter lists. This is subscribed to. These are lists that I have subscribed to under the Twitter account. So you can subscribe to lists that other people have created. You can create your own list. But you will also see that tab that says Member Of. These are lists that we have been added to. So that's a great place to start. So if you go to your Twitter account and then you click that arrow that says More to the right of Favorite, and then that's where you'll find lists. And then you can see who has added you to the list, what list you are a member of. And if somebody's added you to a list, number one, you should have been notified in your notifications. But in case you missed it, you want to know that the people that created that list are fans of yours, and you want to build a kind of group of super fans. So it's important that you follow. Anybody that's added you to a list, you want to follow, because they're saying, hey, I'm opting into you not just as a follow, but as a super fan. I think you're important enough to add to a curated list. So kind of look for that and you can go to the SCRA account to see examples of the lists that we've created and kind of to follow, you can subscribe to those lists. And on the other side of that, if somebody subscribes to your list, they're saying, hey, I think what you've curated is really interesting. So you want to follow people that have subscribed to your list. And then you guys can kind of look at that as a way to get started. And this is just the view from a Twitter list, this next slide. So this is what it looks like when you do click into a Twitter list. This is what it looks like. And when I was saying that if somebody adds you to a list or follows you, you'll be notified in notifications. As you can see next to the home button, there's notifications. That's where you would find out that you've been added to a list, that you've been favorited, that you've been retweeted. And all this stuff is pretty intuitive once you start going. And that's kind of, when you see, for me, I always kind of go through the same steps, which is I find an influencer, and this is my own little special sauce that seems to work every time, just from creating a tweet into a meeting, basically. I find influencers, I favorite what they do, I retweet them, I @mention them, I follow them, and eventually they'll follow me back. And then I can direct message them through Twitter and get the conversation really going. A tweet chat, next is, I've been talking about tweet chats quite a bit. A tweet chat is just an organized event. Usually they happen on a weekly basis, but often they're just one-off. We're going to have a tweet chat pretty soon with this group. And a tweet chat is just, you can go to tweetchat.com, and it's a way to have a chat on Twitter that filters out all the other noise. You just use the prearranged hashtag, and it's a great way to meet, I think the best way to meet your people, to meet the best kind of followers that are in your world. So going to tweetchat.com just helps filter out all the noise, and it also pre-adds the hashtag in your tweet so you can kind of participate quickly. And then that way you're finding out, like you hold an event, everybody has conversations. We will have one so we can show you, but it's a great way to meet influencers in a specific area. And there are a lot of tweet chat directories out there that you can find. And after the tweet chat, Storyfy is a great way to kind of summarize what happens. So Storyfy is just a tool that you can create timelines that are archived, because the thing about Twitter is that once it's over, it doesn't archive tweets forever. There are third-party tools that will, but you have to pay for them. So Storyfy is a great way to archive something that happened, and you can kind of add editorial comments and other things from the web and really have it linkable, and then it's available when people search on the web. So it's a really great way. And, you know, I've live tweeted, I live tweeted a government innovation event recently, and then just as a participant, I created a Storyfy, and I shared it with the hashtag from the tweet chat, said, hey, you guys, I put this together. And being generous on Twitter scores you a lot of points. I immediately got a ton of retweets, about 25 new follows just from doing that one Storyfy. And the tool was so easy that anyone can use it, and it took me probably an hour to put together at most. I'm moving kind of quickly so we can get through this. We're going to probably go over about 15 minutes. So this is an example of Dr. David Ballard, who is in your world. He's the head of the APA Center for Organizational Excellence and Psychology, and he is a great tweeter. You guys can all tweet at him right now with the hashtag SCRASocial and say that we said he's great. He does it well. He's a great one to model. He really knows how to tweet. What makes it good is that he's not overly self-promotional. He does a great balance of pointing to others and being generous in his tweets. He uses hashtags in a great way to widen the conversation, so that way anyone who's, like, for example, searching the hashtag politics will also see his tweets. He does a balanced, kind of informative and humorous approach, and he's elegant in the way he promotes his own stuff. He's not too showy. And I can do this because I work for TechSoup, but please don't tweet this out, you guys. It's between you and me. TechSoup sometimes has a tendency to not do it that well. What makes this one bad is they're saying this is what happens when, and then they forgot to put the link in. So you can see that someone wrote, wait, what happens? We want to know. And so that kind of, you've got to remember to include all the components. Another example of tweet gone bad is that they corrected one. They forgot to use the hashtag they wanted to use. So they corrected it, but they didn't delete the old tweet. So if you make a correction, remember to delete your original bad tweet. It's only going to be seen on Hootsuite on a third-party dashboard, but not on Twitter.com. And here's an example. I anonymized it because I don't want these people to, I don't work at this place, so I don't want them to feel bad. But what makes this bad is obviously this person was publishing on a third-party dashboard like Hootsuite, and you can see that they control more than one account. So those of us who subscribe to both of their accounts, who follow both their accounts, get double updates every time. So I hope that's clear. Like, you're using Hootsuite and you have more than one Twitter account, don't tweet at the same time. Schedule them separately and kind of change them a little bit so it doesn't look like this. You don't get like everyone in the whole world knowing that you're kind of basically spamming two channels. It doesn't make you look like you want to engage with people. And just for fun, don't tweet like Cher. She's the worst, I think, the worst tweeter in the world. Everything she does is wrong for so many reasons. She makes up useless hashtags. She spams by a direct message or whoever tweets for her. She calls herself a rock star. She puts a lot of emoticons, which means that she tweets from her iPhone, but not everybody who has an iPhone can do those. She's self-referential in all her tweets. You don't want to do that. You want to track through. You want to track your clicks through, and you want to retweet stuff you've read, like I talked about. And there's no need to sign your tweets. A lot of people sign their tweets. They know it's coming from you, right, if it's your account. So don't tweet like Cher. And I talked about Hootsuite. I'm going to talk a little bit more. Hootsuite is my favorite third-party dashboard. Very easy to use, very inexpensive. It's like $6. It makes tweeting so much easier and more efficient. It really helps you look at, you can see here I've set up community psychology as keywords. I found some other hashtags that are used by community psychologists like APA and CBTR. Even if you don't know what a hashtag means, like what the 4 letters stand for or the 3 letters, you can, and thanks Natalie for signing off. It's nice to meet you. We'll talk to you soon, hopefully on Twitter. But it's a great way to just listen to Twitter lists. You can listen to hashtags. You can listen to various people's accounts. It makes it very easy. It's just done by streams, different streams. And you can schedule tweets in Hootsuite. And you can also, that little paperclip that you see is to attach a link, and it shortens the link through what they call Owly, O-W-L, because the owl is their mascot, and that's also trackable. So I recommend getting started with Hootsuite. And again, don't be stressed out because I'm here to answer any questions going forward. If you have any questions on Hootsuite or anything for that matter, you tweet at me or at SCRA, we will answer them. Willie, you want to start going through Facebook a little bit?
Sure. Okay, so for the sake of time, and I'm assuming that most of you are fairly comfortable with Facebook, I'm going to breeze through this. So here you have SCRA's Facebook page. This is just to show you what we've been doing. Here you can see notifications about our webinar. And then I'll give you a little rundown of the difference between an individual and a public page. Next slide. All right, so here are the basic differences between a personal and public page. For me, the 2 most important ones are that with the public page, you have unlimited fans. Personal pages are limited to 5,000. And if you intend on growing your personal brand, you might want to consider going public. The one thing, though, is that Facebook's most recent algorithms have made it very difficult for public page posts to show up in people's news feeds without paying. So that's something to keep in mind. Next page.
I just want to chime in while you're switching over to the next page that when Lily says it makes it difficult for people to see your page posts without paying, the paying part, you can set your own budget and you can spend as little as $10. You should expect to, depending on your page number, if you have kind of under 500 page followers, then an average page you should expect to see between about 38 and 60 people liking it. If they don't, you want to boost the post by paying like 10 or 15 bucks to get it into people's streams. And a secret way to do that is also to get everyone who you know who's liking it, who is a fan of that page, to like the post, and it will boost it up in the algorithm.
Okay, so now about posting. Just a couple things to keep in mind. Images always get the most engagement, so when you can, include an image. And do know that even though Facebook doesn't have a character limitation, the shorter your posts are, the more likely it is to be engaged with. Next slide. Okay, Facebook groups. So Facebook groups are generally centered around some sort of silly interest, but actually there are a ton of high quality, active, professional groups on Facebook, and they're a really great way to have engaging, insightful conversations. So what you'll want to do is find these groups just by going to the search bar, and after you go through it, vet it, make sure it's something that you want to participate in, you might consider posting a simple introduction on the group's wall about who you are and what your interests might be. And after that, share content, but be sure to also comment on other people's posts. Next slide. Okay, liking and interest list. Facebook has this feature where you can create an interest list very similar to the way that Twitter lists operate. This way, you don't have to like it so that your news feed isn't flooded with posts from these organizations. So what you can do instead, if you're interested in, for example, I have a visual art organization list here. I can just click that and go read all the posts I want for the day. Do be sure that when you're liking and adding to interest lists, to make sure that if you're managing another account, that you toggle between your individual and your organizational account. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to go into LinkedIn, and Susan will go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this is me actually, and I'm going to. So LinkedIn, is a professional network, and most of you both probably have a LinkedIn profile, but most of you have probably, my guess, created a LinkedIn profile, like a resume, and then forgotten about it. And there's actually a lot more to LinkedIn than just creating a personal profile. LinkedIn, just you're seeing the SCRA page, it only has, very few followers because we just created the SCRA page on LinkedIn as a company page. There's groups. But this is a way, so it's a great way to recruit people into your company or your organization. It's a great way for your organization or company to share updates. It's with the outside world, and it's also a great way to kind of, again, position yourself as a subject matter expert if you run an organization. And the thing about LinkedIn is, again, you're not just about creating your own account. It's about building a network. So we talked earlier about, ways to build your Twitter network. With LinkedIn, it's a little bit easier because it's all very keyword. The tool is very keyword oriented. So you'll be able to find a lot of people to connect to via just putting it in the search bar. But there's also ways to visualize your network as it stands. There's tools like InMap, which is a LinkedIn tool, to visualize your network, see who's in it, who you should be talking to, and you can leverage your network by you see influential people in your network. And you can also, it's a great thing to do is to cross-reference them with Twitter. So if you find somebody, and like let's say you find Willie Crow in your network, and you realize, I wonder if this person's on Twitter, you can actually go and look for them on Twitter. And if you follow people on channels, that's even better. Then you're really engaging, especially influencers. It's a great way because they'll notice that if you're following them in multiple places that you're a fan. You want to reach out for your LinkedIn network to give you endorsements and recommendations, but also posting in groups is a great way to build your LinkedIn network. Groups are really, I think, the secret sauce of LinkedIn. And there's a LinkedIn inbox, which is a tool that lets you write to people. There's a limited amount of them with a free account. I have a paid account. I'm not sure exactly right now what the free account allows. If anyone knows that, if you could put it in the chat. But it's a way to write to people before you connect with them. So if you're not connected to them, you can still write to them. And the difference between the paid and the private is the amount of time to be able to do that. Another feature which I really love with LinkedIn is it will email you and tell you who's looking at your profile. Really helpful if you're job hunting to see what kinds of people are looking at your profile. And finally, publishing articles on LinkedIn is a much more effective way to get viewers and readers and kind of position yourself as an expert than having your own blog. Because most likely, if you have your own blog, unless you are a professional blogger, not many people are going to know. It's like kind of the whole concept of like if a tree falls in the woods, no one's there to hear it. Is it there to make does it make a sound? With LinkedIn, it's going to make a sound because their audience is millions and millions of people. So if you publish articles on LinkedIn, that's a great way. And they call you a linked influencer. So just with your LinkedIn profile, just making sure that you are using your correct industry tags and that you have, your current description, your current position description is thorough, and that you have your education and some skills listed, that you have at least 50 connections. I'm going to hand it over, in your volunteer experience. I'm going to hand it back to Willie. Talk a little bit more about LinkedIn.
Okay, just quickly to note on this slide that LinkedIn profiles are multimedia now so that you can include your work samples on it, and I highly recommend doing that. Next slide. Okay, this is just here, it's pretty straightforward. Just be sure to customize your profile URL. The default is pretty standard gibberishy URL, so make sure to do this. Next slide. This is just about taking a professional photo and making sure that you have that on your LinkedIn profile. Super easy to just find a photo off Facebook where you look pretty good, but don't give in. Try and find a professional photo for yourself. Next slide. Quick things that shouldn't be on your profile. This might be different for some of you in regards to publications. If you have a more academic LinkedIn rather than a work type of professional one, please don't put too many obnoxious buzzwords in your summary. It can be a little off-putting to certain people, and you want to appear as professional as possible. Next slide.
So LinkedIn groups are, as I was mentioning, a really great super favorite of LinkedIn. Love LinkedIn groups. There's so many of them, and a nice feature of them is that they email you. So it's kind of like the listserv used to be. And really, people in LinkedIn groups are very helpful. I cannot emphasize enough for you guys to find some LinkedIn groups and join them. And again, same goes with companies. You can find companies that you're interested in working for. When I say companies, it also includes, of course, not NGOs, nonprofit organizations, and their pages. So, and just keep your updates professional, because there's no limitation of characters like Twitter. And with LinkedIn recommendations, you just want to make sure that you are not only asking for recommendations, that you're writing them. Good rule of thumb is 5 lines, 5 minutes, and in this slide we'll have kind of a format. But it's a nice way to give a hat tip to somebody, but also to get one for yourself. And it's good to have several LinkedIn recommendations. They're a lot more valuable than endorsements. As you can see, here's a snapshot of my endorsements, and there are way too many of them. People also started gaming endorsements, and because the tool kind of the tool pushes them forward, so they're not super valuable. I would really focus on recommendations. And we're almost at the end of our presentation, leaving some time for questions. This is basically 5 minutes a day on Twitter, 5 on Facebook. As you can see, you can do this in 8 hours a week. This is how to divide that up. So you can go back to the slide and see the time, but at a bare minimum, just responding. And we're ready. This is a weekly checklist, and if you want to do some of these things, that would be great. Again, this will be under slideshare.net/SUZBOOP, and I'll have Lindsay and Victoria send that around, and some do's and don'ts, which we've already addressed. So open for resources will be available and open for questions. Passing it back to Lindsay.
All right, thanks. Is everyone able to hear me? Let me know via chat if you're still there, and I want to make sure to get to any questions that you may have. All right, great. Actually, and just thinking real quick, thought I'd go back to the time investment slide and leave it there. We received a lot of different information here from Willie and Susan, and I really appreciate their expertise. Hey, Lawanda. Glad to see you've joined the meeting. Any questions that anyone has to put in the public chat here that Susan and Willie might be able to answer?
I saw a question while you were talking about, I can answer that question, Brian, but I just wanted to also say that I saw a question about will this webinar be recorded and archived, and the answer is yes, and that will be sent around to you guys. And the slides will be available on slideshare.net/SuzBoot and also hopefully on the SCRA SlideShare. So I'm going to answer Brian's question, are listservs still relevant? They are absolutely relevant. Listservs are relevant in certain, for example, I belong to a bunch of emergency management listservs, and listservs are great. I think that there are new tools that have pushed listservs aside a little bit, but I think that being a part of email lists is very immediate. And you know, I mean, I obviously am not a community psychologist, and yet I'm tweeting and have been for 6 months now or so on the SCRA account, and I learn everything from the SCRA listserv. So yes, listservs are still relevant. Is ResearchGate worth being on? I don't know anything about ResearchGate. I'm assuming that's a community psychology tool, so maybe someone else could answer that one.
I'm still on the call, and I don't know that much about it either, so I don't know that I'm in a good place to comment. I do know that, you know, that's something that would be specific to our field, and one thing that's interesting about all these channels that they've been sharing with us about today is that everyone is using these channels by and large in a way that extends beyond our field, including people who are specific to academia, but I don't know for sure the value of ResearchGate versus some of the other options that are out there. There's many, I know, so I guess I'm just saying that you...
I found a lot of groups on LinkedIn for community psychology. Brett asked a question, any advice for groups that share an account? Are you talking about a Twitter or a Facebook account? I guess both. The advice I could give on Twitter, yeah, for sure. Use Hootsuite, because using Hootsuite, sharing an account, that way you can assign tweets to different people and say, you know what, Lindsay, it would be better to answer this. So you can push tweets to certain people. You can see who has responded to questions. You can see who has responded to direct messages. So if you share an account, I absolutely almost require, without being too bossy, that you use Hootsuite. It's a great tool for sharing accounts. Other advice I would give is that you all have some sort of shared Google Doc with all the passwords, so that nobody is kind of stuck. You have a separate Google Doc with all your passwords. And then, you know, also like with curation, it's great if many people have to log into a Scoopit account, for example, so that there isn't just one person finding content. Good question, though.
So I have a question for audience members. This is Lindsay. If you're willing to weigh in via public chat, we are going to have Susan and Willie with us for another webinar in November. And the question is, what would be useful to focus on in the next session, given this kind of overview that we've given today? There's a lot of information here. And as they said, these slides will be available so you can kind of go through and dig into whatever depth you would like in the future. But what would be useful for the November webinar from your perspective, given what you've seen today, focused on social media? Any thoughts?
I can also, digital repositories for student research. Okay, I can look into that. I'm sure that there are many. I've definitely come across many. I will look into some specific case studies. Okay, that sounds great. No problem. And I was going to say, would it be interesting to you guys for us to talk more in depth about content curation and deep listening? So there's a bunch. Lawanda says yes. So content curation and deep listening. When I say deep listening, I mean going more in depth into hashtags and more discussion of branding. And I hope I can keep. Is someone saving? Is the chat going to be also saved, you guys? I hope so. Or can someone do a cut and paste of all these questions coming through?
Yeah, I think we'll be able to track this.
Okay. So I'm just going to go back and scroll back and look at these questions that are coming through all. So perhaps in this case, develop a manual. I don't think we're going to do a manual necessarily, but we're doing some online. We'll be sharing a lot of resources. So far we don't have plans to do a manual, unless I'm mistaken. Lindsay?
Yeah, that's true. Although we will have all these slides and resources available, and there is already a wiki that Susan created, and then these slides will be available. And then, so I guess for me, I find that what was presented today still gives me more than I could possibly do, even if I started right now doing this for the next several months. So I'm wondering if folks will maybe, who are on the call, and since there's so much content here, if you take a look at the slides later and think about maybe some of your strategic initiatives with your community partners or with SCRA, and shoot an email to Susan at susantenby.com or to Willie or to any of us from SCRA, and we can really dig in deeper with more questions that you feel like aren't covered here that could get closer to maybe what you're thinking of with a manual.
And I also want to I just want to chime in to Brett, some form of TA where they comment on the activity account. I would love to do that. I love doing account audits. So happy to do kind of what I did to share when I ripped her apart, or to text to do kind of a social media audit. I've done that many times. Happy to do that. Christopher said additional tool that provides more data on reach, like Google Analytics. Yeah, I could do a little bit more. We could do a stats session for sure. We could absolutely do an analytics session. Definitely do some more information on branding and tools. You guys are really hungry for that. That's great. Bernadette says how an education program can use social media. I think you should look at Edutopia as a great example of that. Start it with @Edutopia's Twitter account and look around there. I can do case studies of education as long as somebody's taking notes on all these questions. I'm happy to do it, but Edutopia is a great example for you guys to get started on. And uses of copyright, okay. Logging, platforms, handling, so platforms or ways to host meetings online via social media. Yes, I've done that session before. We can share information on that session is really about kind of holding a session online and how to capture the information, how to do back channel sweeps, which might be interesting to you guys, kind of expanding the message outward beyond just the event itself. So that might be an interesting one to look into. And then Christopher Nettle says other social networks for scientists. I can look into that. I don't know any right now. Lindsay says email some further ones. Anything else?
Yeah, I posted that on there. So another thing that is not going to be a surprise to SCRA members as an all-volunteer group is that it is definitely up to us to identify our emergent leaders and organize in order to get some of these initiatives underway. And so I just wanted to, on the one hand, say thank you again to all the members of SCRA who worked to get these the expertise of Susan and Willie on board for SCRA, and also who have been working to plan and coordinate the webinar series, of which obviously the kinks still need to be worked out. So if you would like to plan webinars on any of these topics, if you are passionate about a need that you see in your community and you would like to bring the resources of Susan, Willie, and SCRA to bear, then please consider joining the planning working groups for the webinar series and becoming involved in shaping the social media efforts that SCRA is undertaking. And we would definitely welcome that kind of active effort to make sure that these things get done. So I am thinking too. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say my slide share link is on this slide, you guys. So the slide share will be up there by this evening. Basically, as soon as I get back from after this next meeting, I will load it up there. So by this evening, you will all have these slides.
That's great. And if folks don't have any additional questions at this point, I'll just make you all aware that you should receive an email, and we are doing this, these early webinars kind of as a proof of concept so that the SCRA Executive Committee knows you know, how they're going, who participates. And so what we're going to do is email you a link to a SurveyMonkey evaluation, and we really, really, again, would appreciate your time answering the questions there and helping us to evaluate today's session. We'll use that data to inform the next presentation. All right. Is there anything else before we go? Any other public chats? All right. It looks like folks are hanging up, so we can go ahead and get off the call. I'll put my face on there and say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for participating in today's first webinar from SCRA, Building Community, and thank you to Susan and Willie for your help, not only today, but over the last several months.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.